The snow fell heavy that December night in 1995, each flake a white knife against my burning skin. I couldn't feel my fingers anymore. Couldn't feel much of anything really, except the cold seeping into my bones and the dull ache where my ribs had been bruised from yet another accident in the kitchen. I was 30 years old and I was dying. Not dramatically. Not heroically. Just fading away on the front steps of a house that had never been mine, wearing clothes threadbare from 5 years of constant washing, my body trembling from exhaustion and malnutrition. Through the frosted window I could see them. Theodore, my husband, my Captain Theodore with his crisp uniform and sharp jawline, had his arms wrapped around Oliver. They were laughing. That sound, that beautiful sound I remembered from our courtship, now belonged to someone else entirely. Oliver's head was thrown back in delight, Theodore's hand possessively gripping his waist. I had heard Madame Teresa earlier, telling Oliver he was so much better suited to Theodore than that pathetic thing downstairs. She'd said it loud enough for me to hear, of course. She always did. The world blurred. My vision darkened at the edges. If I had another chance, I thought as consciousness slipped away, I'd make them all pay. I'd never give up my dreams. I'd never abandon my education for people who saw me as nothing more than free labor. The cold embraced me like a lover I'd never had, and then, nothing. Liam, get down here and make breakfast. Do you intend on sleeping all day? I bolted upright, heart hammering. That voice. Madame Teresa's voice, but younger somehow. Sharper. I looked around wildly at my surroundings. This was our bedroom, Theodore's and mine, but it looked different. Newer. The wallpaper wasn't peeling yet. The furniture hadn't been relegated to the cheap, broken pieces they'd eventually give us. And when I caught sight of myself in the mirror across the room, I nearly screamed. I was 25 years old again. My face was fuller, healthier. My eyes hadn't yet developed those dark, sunken circles. My body didn't carry the countless scars from kitchen accidents and clumsy falls. My hands were smooth, not raw from years of scrubbing floors without proper supplies. Liam. Teresa's voice came again, irritated. I won't call you again. It hit me like a lightning bolt. I was back. 5 years back to the beginning of this nightmare before the worst of it started. Before Theodore's promotion. Before the complete erasure of my identity as anything other than a servant. A laugh bubbled up from my chest, half hysterical, half triumphant. I pressed my palm against my mouth to stifle it. I was back. I had been given the second chance I'd begged for in that final moment. And this time, everything would be different. I'm coming. I called out, making my voice sound appropriately meek. I had to be smart about this. I couldn't let them know anything had changed yet. I dressed quickly in the simple clothes I remembered wearing during this period, before Teresa had made me start wearing literal servant's attire, and headed downstairs. Teresa stood in the kitchen, arms crossed, her expression already sour. At 48, she was handsome in a severe way, her hair pulled back so tightly it seemed to lift her eyebrows. Finally. Your husband will be late for his duties because of your laziness. I bit back the retort that wanted to fly from my lips. I apologize, Mother. It won't happen again. She sniffed dismissively. See that it doesn't. Theodore works too hard to come home to an incompetent spouse. Theodore appeared in the doorway, adjusting his uniform. At 32, he was undeniably attractive, tall, broad-shouldered, with dark eyes that had once looked at me with something resembling affection. Now they barely glanced my way. Morning, he said curtly to his mother, then to me, make sure dinner is ready by 6. I'm bringing a colleague home. Of course, I said softly. He left without another word. No kiss goodbye. No acknowledgement that I was his husband. Just orders and absence. But I didn't feel the crushing despair I'd felt the first time through this day. Instead, I felt calculating. Cold. Determined. I knew how this story ended. Now I was going to write a different ending. Later that afternoon, I told Teresa I needed to visit my parents. She grudgingly agreed. She always did back in these early days, before she'd started denying me even that small freedom. I walked the familiar path to my childhood home, a modest but warm house on the other side of town. My mother nearly wept when she saw me. Liam, you've gotten so thin. I'm fine, Mama, I assured her, embracing her tightly. This time, I held on a little longer, grateful for a warmth I'd forgotten existed. My father clasped my shoulder, his eyes concerned. You look tired, son. Is Anna here? I asked. In her room, my mother said. Go on up. I took the stairs 2 at a time. Anna was 3 years older than me, fierce and protective in ways that had always made me feel safe. She looked up from the book she was reading as I entered, and her face immediately brightened. Liam. She set the book aside and patted the bed beside her. What brings you by? Not that I'm complaining. I closed the door carefully and sat down. Then, for the first time in years, in this timeline anyway, I told the truth. Anna, I need to tell you everything that's happening in my marriage. Her expression shifted from happy to concerned. What do you mean? I took a breath and began. I told her about the way Theodore treated me like hired help rather than a spouse. About how Madame Teresa worked me like a servant, verbally abusing me constantly. About Theodore's brother Aaron who joined in the mockery. About how I'd given up my scholarship to medical school to support Theodore's career, how I'd used all my savings to help pay for his training and advancement. As I spoke, Anna's face grew darker and darker with fury. By the time I finished, she was on her feet, trembling with rage. I'm going over there right now, she snarled. I'm going to demand answers. How dare they, my brother a slave? Oh. Anna, wait. I grabbed her hand, pulling her back down. Please. I need you to listen to me. Listen? Liam, they're abusing you. This isn't a marriage, it's... I know, I said quietly. And they deserve hell for it. But we need to be smart about this. She stared at me and I could see her forcing herself to breathe, to think rather than just react. This was one of the things I loved most about my sister. Her passion was matched only by her strategic mind. Okay, she said finally. Okay. Tell me what you need. I looked at her, this fierce protector, this woman who'd always believed in me. I want to go back to school. I want to become a doctor like I always dreamed. But I can't do it openly, not yet. Theodore and his family will do everything to stop me if they know. Anna's eyes lit with understanding. So you need to study in secret. Yes. And I need someone I trust to help me. She gripped both my hands in hers. Tell me everything. We'll plan this together. Over the next 2 months, Anna became my lifeline and co-conspirator. Every weekend, she'd visit the house under the pretense of checking on her baby brother. She'd always bring something, a basket of food that Teresa would appropriate for herself, a small gift that would disappear into Aaron's room. But hidden in her bags were the real treasures: medical textbooks, past examination questions, study guides. I'd hide them in places no one would look, under loose floorboards in the back of the rarely used linen closet, tucked into the dusty rafters of the attic where I'd been given a storage room, to sleep when Theodore decided he needed private space. During the day I played my role perfectly. The dutiful son-in-law. The meek, subservient spouse. I made breakfast, cleaned the house, prepared elaborate dinners. I absorbed Teresa's constant criticisms without complaint. I watched Theodore leave the house in his increasingly impressive uniforms, knowing he was meeting Oliver but saying nothing. But at night, when the house finally quieted, I studied. I'd wrap myself in whatever thin blanket I had, light a candle stub I'd saved, and pore over anatomy texts and pharmacology notes. I memorized procedures. I practiced sutures on pieces of scrap fabric. I worked through chemistry equations until my head pounded. Some nights Theodore would come home late, reeking of cologne that wasn't his own, with his uniform disheveled in ways that told their own story. He'd look at me, hunched over in the kitchen with my cleaning supplies, and not see me at all. Still awake? He'd say with mild annoyance, as if my presence was an inconvenience. Try to keep the noise down. Of course, I'd murmur. Can I get you anything? No. Just, stay out of my way. Those moments were the hardest. Not because they hurt anymore, but because I had to restrain myself from speaking the truth. From telling him I knew everything. From revealing that I was planning something he'd never see coming. But patience was its own form of power. Anna helped me register for the medical school entrance examination under her address, so no correspondence would come to Theodore's house. She paid the fees from her own teaching salary. When I worried about taking her money, she grabbed my face between her hands and said fiercely, "You're investing in your future. Our future. Let me help you." The morning of the exam, I told Teresa I was going to help Anna with some heavy lifting at her apartment. "You better be back by 4 to start dinner," she snapped. "And don't think you can slack off because you spent the morning elsewhere. The kitchen still needs to be scrubbed." "Yes, mother," I said obediently. The exam was held at the university I'd once dreamed of attending. Walking those halls again, seeing the young students with their bright eyes and ambitious dreams, I felt something crack open in my chest. Not pain, but possibility. I sat for the 6-hour examination and poured every ounce of my midnight studying into it. When I finally set down my pen, I was exhausted but electric with hope. 3 weeks later, the letter arrived at Anna's address. Congratulations. You have been accepted to the National Medical School program with a full government scholarship. Anna called me from a payphone, crying. You did it, Liam. You actually did it. I leaned against the phone booth, my own tears spilling over. We did it. So what happens now? She asked. I wiped my eyes, my voice hardening with resolve. Now I clear the obstacles in my path. I remembered Mrs. Catherine vividly from my previous life. She was the wife of Commissioner Grant, the highest-ranking officer in our military district. In her late 50s, she was elegant, sharp-minded, and wielded her husband's position with calculated precision. She'd taken a liking to me during the first year of my marriage to Theodore, when I'd still been presented as Theodore's spouse at some social functions, before he'd started calling me his household help to his colleagues. She'd wanted me to marry her son James, and had been quite disappointed when I'd chosen Theodore instead. In my previous life, I'd avoided her after Theodore started hiding our marriage, ashamed of what I'd become. This time I sought her out. I started small. I'd learned which market she frequented, which tea house she visited on Thursday afternoons. I arranged to accidentally encounter her. Liam, she exclaimed when she saw me, genuine pleasure in her face. My dear boy, it's been ages. Where have you been hiding? Mrs. Catherine, I said warmly, bowing slightly. What a lovely surprise. You look wonderful. We talked for a few minutes, catching up superficially. Before we parted, I said casually, I should bring you some of those lemon cookies you mentioned loving. Would it be terribly forward of me to visit? Her eyes lit up. Forward? Nonsense. I'd be delighted. Come by any afternoon. You know where to find me. I began visiting her once a week, always bringing small gifts, cookies I'd baked, flowers from the market, a book of poetry I'd found. We'd sit in her elegant parlor and talk. I was careful never to complain directly, but I'd let small things slip. A wince when I moved wrong. A flinch when a door closed too loudly. Are you quite all right, dear? She asked after the third visit, her eyes sharp. I touched my side, where I knew from my previous life there would soon be bruises from Teresa's accidental shoves. Oh, it's nothing. Just a small accident at home. I'm terribly clumsy with the cleaning supplies. Her lips pressed into a thin line. I see. But her eyes said she didn't believe me. I wore slightly looser clothing on my next visit, and when I reached up to hand her a package from a high shelf she'd requested, my sleeve rode up. The scars on my forearms, old ones from my previous timeline that I'd been careful to hide, were visible. Liam. Her voice was steel. What happened to your arm? Oh. I pulled my sleeve down quickly, looking embarrassed. That's old. From when I was learning to cook. I was very careless. She stood up, walking over to me. Gently but firmly, she pushed my sleeve back up and examined the marks. These are not cooking accidents. Mrs. Catherine, really? Who did this to you? Her eyes met mine and I saw genuine anger there. Does Theodore know? I looked away, letting my silence speak for me. My God, she whispered. Then, more firmly, you will tell me everything. Now. I can't, I said softly. Theodore is your husband's subordinate. It wouldn't be appropriate for me to. Damn appropriate, she snapped. Tell me what's happening in that house. So I told her. Not everything, I was careful about that. But enough. About the constant labor. About Teresa's verbal abuse. About being treated as a servant rather than Theodore's spouse. About the isolation. I was careful never to mention Oliver. Not yet. When I finished, she was silent for a long moment. Then she said quietly, I'll look into this. Please, Mrs. Catherine, I don't want to cause trouble. I needed someone to talk to. She took my hand. You're not causing trouble, dear. You're finally speaking the truth. The following week, I visited Mrs. Catherine again. This time I looked more worried than usual. What's troubling you? She asked immediately. I hesitated as if unsure whether to speak. It's probably nothing. Liam. I sighed. It's Theodore. He's been coming home very late recently. Sometimes not until morning. And when I ask him about it, he becomes angry with me, tells me I'm being paranoid and controlling. I look down at my hands. Perhaps I am. He works so hard and I should trust him. But I can't help feeling. Feeling what? Like something has changed between us. Like he's hiding something. Mrs. Catherine's expression became calculating. I could practically see the gears turning in her mind. She was a woman who valued fidelity, who believed in the sanctity of marriage. The idea that Theodore might be unfaithful would be personally offensive to her. I'm sure it's just the stress of his work, I added quickly. I shouldn't have said anything. But the seed was planted. Over the next few days I was careful to move the chess pieces into position. I knew from my previous life that this particular Friday, Theodore would be emboldened enough to bring Oliver to our house, to our matrimonial bedroom, while I was supposed to be asleep in the attic. Teresa would welcome Oliver with open arms, already grooming him as her preferred son-in-law, treating him to the dinner I'd prepared, allowing him to sleep in the guest room while Theodore stayed up late working on paperwork in our bedroom. On the Thursday before, I visited Mrs. Catherine one final time. You seem especially tense today, she observed. Do I? I tried to laugh it off. I suppose I'm just tired. Theodore mentioned bringing a colleague home tomorrow evening, so I need to ensure everything is perfect. A colleague? Her eyebrow raised. Anyone I would know? Dr. Oliver Chin, I said casually. From the military hospital. I watched recognition flicker across her face. Oliver was known in certain circles. Handsome, charming, and notably unmarried despite being in his early 30s. I see, she said slowly. How professional of Theodore. That evening I walked home slowly, taking the long route. I knew Mrs. Catherine's driver, knew the route he took from her estate. I wasn't surprised when I noticed the discreet car following at a distance. She wanted to see where I lived now. Wanted to verify the story I'd told her. I led her right to the house. Friday evening came with all the terrible familiarity of a recurring nightmare, except this time, I was the one writing the script. I prepared an elaborate dinner as instructed. Roasted duck, honey-glazed vegetables, fresh bread, apple tart. Teresa inspected everything with her usual critical eye. Try not to embarrass Theodore in front of his colleague, she sniffed. Serve the food and then make yourself scarce. We don't need you hovering about. Yes, mother. Theodore arrived home at 6:30 with Oliver. The younger man was striking, lean and graceful, with eyes that sparkled when they landed on Theodore. I watched them walk in together, noting the way their fingers brushed, the intimate smile they shared. Welcome home, I said softly. Dinner is ready. Theodore barely glanced at me. Good. Oliver, this is Liam. He helps around the house. Not my spouse. Not my husband. Just helps around the house. Oliver looked at me with barely concealed amusement. How nice. You're very fortunate to have such dedicated help, Theodore. I am, Theodore agreed. They shared a look loaded with meaning. I served dinner to Theodore, Oliver, Teresa, and Aaron, Theodore's younger brother who'd shown up specifically to meet Theodore's special friend. They ate in the formal dining room while I stood in the kitchen, listening to their laughter drift through the doorway. Oliver is such a delight, Teresa gushed. So refined. So educated. So much more suitable. She cut herself off, but the implication was clear. After dinner, I cleaned up while they moved to the sitting room. Around 10 o'clock, Teresa loudly announced that she'd prepared the guest room for Oliver. How thoughtful, Mother, Theodore said. Though I'll need Oliver's help reviewing some medical files tonight. He might be working late in my office. Of course, Teresa said, smiling in a way that suggested she understood perfectly what reviewing files meant. I retreated to the attic as expected, but I didn't sleep. I waited until midnight, then silently crept to a window that overlooked the front of the house. Right on schedule, I saw Mrs. Catherine's car parked discreetly down the street. She'd followed me. She'd seen me enter through the servant's entrance. And now she was watching. Phase 1 complete. At 1 in the morning, I heard it, the sound that had destroyed me in my previous life. Laughter. Theodore's deep rumble and Oliver's lighter tone, coming from the bedroom that should have been mine alone. The bedroom where I should have been sleeping beside my husband. Instead, I was in the attic, exactly where Mrs. Catherine could see my shadow in the window if she was watching carefully. Which I knew she was. I moved to the window, letting the moonlight catch my face, letting her see me exiled to this cold, lonely space while my husband entertained his lover in our bed. The laughter continued. Then, unmistakably, other sounds. Intimate sounds. I waited. Around 3 in the morning, I heard Mrs. Catherine's car start and pull away. I smiled in the darkness. The summons came within 48 hours. Captain Theodore Grant was ordered to report to Commissioner Grant's office immediately regarding matters of conduct unbecoming an officer. I was cleaning the kitchen when Theodore stormed in, his face white with fury. He grabbed my arm hard enough to leave marks, which I carefully noted for later. What did you do? He hissed. I don't understand, I said, making my voice small and frightened. Don't play innocent. Someone reported me to the commissioner. Someone told them. He stopped, clearly unwilling to say aloud what he'd been accused of. It was you. You said something to someone. Theodore, I haven't. You're going to fix this, he snarled. You're going to tell them it was all a misunderstanding. That you were mistaken. That nothing inappropriate happened. But Theodore, you'll do it or I'll divorce you. His eyes were cold. Do you understand what that means? A divorced man in this town? Your reputation will be destroyed. No one will hire you. Your family will be shamed. You'll have nothing. In my previous life, this threat had terrified me into compliance. I'd told the investigators whatever Theodore wanted, had denied everything, had let him escape consequences. This time I looked him in the eyes and said quietly, no. He froze. What? I won't lie for you, Theodore. His grip tightened painfully. You ungrateful, everything I've done for you, everything I've provided. Provided? I laughed, a bitter sound. You've provided me with a servant's room, endless labor, and your mother's constant abuse. You've hidden our marriage like it's something shameful. You've brought your lover into our bedroom. What exactly have you provided that I should be grateful for? How dare you? The truth, Theodore? I dare speak the truth? Teresa burst into the kitchen. What is all this noise? Theodore, what? Your son, I said calmly, is being investigated for conduct unbecoming an officer. Specifically for adultery and spousal abuse. Her face went red. You little rat. You reported him. After everything this family has done for you. Done to me, I corrected. Everything you've done to me. She raised her hand to strike me, but this time I was ready. I stepped back smoothly, and her momentum carried her forward. She stumbled, reaching for the stair railing, but her grip slipped. I watched her fall down the stairs in what felt like slow motion. Each thump of her body against the steps was a punctuation mark ending a sentence of abuse. She came to rest at the bottom, conscious but clearly injured, moaning in pain. Aaron came running at the sound. Mother. Oh God, Mother. He looked up at me with pure hatred. You pushed her. I did not, I said calmly. She tried to hit me and lost her balance. You saw the whole thing from the doorway. Didn't you, Aaron? His mouth opened, then closed. He had been in the doorway. He had seen his mother try to strike me. Theodore was staring at me like he'd never seen me before. Who are you? I'm Liam, I said softly. Your husband. Though you've spent 5 years trying to make me forget it. The official inquiry was thorough and damning. Mrs. Catherine had, as I'd known she would, gone directly to her husband with what she'd witnessed. Commissioner Grant had ordered a full investigation into Theodore's conduct. The investigators discovered multiple witnesses who'd seen Theodore with Oliver in compromising situations. Financial records showing Theodore had been renting a hotel room on a monthly basis. Medical records from the base physician documenting injuries I'd sustained that were inconsistent with reported causes. Testimony from neighbors who'd observed me being treated more like a servant than a spouse. A formal statement from Mrs. Catherine herself, detailing what she'd witnessed. The military took spousal abuse and adultery seriously, especially for officers who were supposed to exemplify moral character. Theodore was dishonorably discharged. Oliver, as his accomplice and a fellow military doctor who'd knowingly engaged in an affair with a married superior officer, was also terminated. Teresa, recovered enough to speak from her bed, she'd broken her hip and would be largely immobile for months, screamed at me every time I entered her room to deliver meals. You've destroyed this family, she shrieked. We took you in. We gave you a home. You gave me a prison, I said quietly. And I've just escaped. Theodore tried one last time to salvage something. He cornered me in the kitchen 3 days after his discharge, his uniform gone, his eyes desperate. Liam, please. We can fix this. Oh, I'll tell them you're my spouse. Publicly. We can move away, start over. No. Please. I'm sorry. I was wrong. I treated you terribly. But I'm begging you. No, I repeated. You had 5 years to treat me with basic human dignity, Theodore. You chose cruelty every single day. Now you want my help because you're facing consequences? No. What are you going to do? He asked, and for the first time, I heard fear in his voice. I'm going to live my life, I said. The life I should have been living all along. I paused at the doorway, then added, oh, and I've been accepted to medical school. I start next month. I'll be moving out. Anna's already arranged everything. I left him standing there, finally speechless. Medical school was everything I'd dreamed it would be. The work was hard, demanding every ounce of my focus and energy. But it was work I'd chosen. Work I loved. For the first time in years, I woke up each morning with purpose rather than dread. I rented a small apartment near campus with my scholarship stipend and a part-time job I took at a local clinic. It was tiny, one room with a kitchenette and a bathroom, but it was mine. No one told me how to arrange the furniture. No one criticized my cooking. No one expected me to serve them. The freedom was intoxicating. Anna visited every Sunday, bringing home-cooked meals and sisterly advice. "You look different," she said during her third visit. "Lighter somehow." "I feel different," I admitted. "I feel like myself again." Word had spread through town about Theodore's discharge and the reasons behind it. Some people whispered, but most were supportive. Several women from the market I'd frequented approached me to express their approval. "Good for you," one elderly shopkeeper said, pressing an extra apple into my bag. "That family always thought they were better than everyone else. Nice to see them knock down a peg." Mrs. Catherine invited me to tea one afternoon. "I'm proud of you," she said simply. "It took tremendous courage to do what you did." "Thank you for believing me," I said. "And for acting on what you witnessed." She sipped her tea thoughtfully. "You know, my son James is still unmarried. And still quite taken with you, from what he tells me." I smiled but shook my head gently. "I appreciate the thought, Mrs. Catherine. But I'm not looking to marry anyone right now. I need time to focus on myself, on my studies, on rebuilding my life." She nodded approvingly. "Very wise. Though should you change your mind in the future, you'll be the first to know," I promised. The years passed in a blur of lectures, clinical rotations, examinations. I threw myself into my studies with single-minded determination, graduating at the top of my class. 4 years later, I stood in front of the mirror in my new apartment, a much nicer one now that I was a certified doctor, adjusting my white coat. Dr. Liam Chin. It had a beautiful ring to it. I'd accepted a position at St. Mary's Hospital, one of the most prestigious medical centers in the region. It was the same hospital where, in my previous timeline, I died on the street outside, too poor and broken to afford treatment. The irony wasn't lost on me. My first week was a whirlwind of new patients, complex cases, and long shifts. But I loved every minute of it. This was what I'd been meant to do. Not scrub floors or prepare meals for people who despised me, but heal, help, save lives. On my 6th day, I was reviewing a patient chart when a voice behind me said, "Excuse me, Dr. Chin?" I turned and found myself looking at one of the most beautiful men I'd ever seen. He was tall, with warm brown eyes and an easy smile. His own white coat identified him as Dr. Marcus Lin, cardiology. "Yes," I said. "I'm Marcus. I'm the attending on the cardiology case you consulted on yesterday. Your notes were excellent, very thorough. I wanted to discuss the treatment plan with you if you have a moment." We talked for 20 minutes about the patient, and I found myself relaxing in his presence. He was knowledgeable but not arrogant, asking for my opinion rather than just dictating orders. When we finished, he hesitated. "This might be forward, but would you like to grab coffee sometime? I'd love to hear more about your approach to patient care. You're clearly very talented." I felt a flutter in my chest, unfamiliar but not unwelcome. "I'd like that." We met for coffee the next week, then lunch, then dinner. Marcus was everything Theodore hadn't been. Attentive, respectful, genuinely interested in my thoughts and feelings. He listened when I talked about my cases, offered insights from his own experience, made me laugh with stories from his medical school days. "You're easy to talk to," I told him one evening as we walked along the river after a particularly long shift. "So are you," he said. "Though I sense there's a lot you haven't told me yet." I looked at him, at those kind eyes, and felt the walls I'd built starting to crack. "There is. But it's complicated." "I'm good with complicated," he said gently. "Whenever you're ready to share it, I'll listen." 6 months into our friendship, though it was becoming something more with each passing week, I finally told him everything. About Theodore. About the abuse. About the rebirth that no one would believe but that I knew in my bones had been real. About the revenge I'd carefully orchestrated. I expected skepticism. Judgment. Something. Instead, Marcus took my hand and said, "You're the strongest person I've ever met." "I'm not." "You are," he insisted. "You survived hell, you rebuilt your life from nothing, and you became this incredible doctor who saves lives every day. That's strength, Liam." "I couldn't have done it without my sister," I said. "Without the people who believed in me. And now I believe in you too," he said. Then, more hesitantly, "I should tell you something. I've been wanting to for weeks, but I was afraid it might complicate our friendship." "What is it?" "I'm falling in love with you," he said simply. I know that might be too much too soon given your past. But I needed you to know that my feelings have become more than friendly. My heart was hammering. Marcus. You don't have to say anything, he said quickly. I just wanted to be honest. We can keep things exactly as they are. I value your friendship too much to risk losing it. I looked at this man who'd been nothing but kind, patient, respectful. Who made me laugh. Who shared my passion for medicine. Who saw me as an equal, not a servant. I'm falling in love with you too, I admitted. And it terrifies me. Why? Because last time I loved someone, it destroyed me. Marcus squeezed my hand. I'm not Theodore. And you're not who you were back then either. You're Dr. Liam Chin now. You're strong enough to take this risk. He was right. I leaned forward and kissed him. Gentle, tentative, nothing like the demanding, possessive kisses Theodore had given me in our brief courtship. This was soft, questioning, full of promise rather than possession. When we pulled apart, Marcus was smiling. Was that okay? More than okay, I said. Our relationship developed slowly, carefully, like a garden being tended by patient hands. Marcus never pushed, never demanded. He let me set the pace, let me decide when I was ready for more intimacy, more commitment, more vulnerability. Our first time making love was nothing like the mechanical, occasionally rough encounters I'd had with Theodore. Marcus was gentle, attentive, constantly checking in to make sure I was comfortable, that I was enjoying myself. You're beautiful, he whispered, kissing along my collarbone, his hands reverent as they explored my body. So beautiful. I arched into his touch, overwhelmed by sensations I'd forgotten could be pleasurable rather than merely endured. When he pressed inside me, his movements were slow and careful, his eyes locked on mine. Okay, he breathed. Yes, I managed. God, yes. We moved together in a rhythm that felt right, natural, like our bodies had been waiting to find each other. When I came apart in his arms, he held me through it, whispering words of love and devotion. Afterward he pulled me close, tangling our legs. Together, his fingers drawing lazy patterns on my back. I love you, he murmured into my hair. I'm going to keep saying it until you believe it completely. I believe it, I said softly. I'm just still learning what love is supposed to feel like. He kissed my forehead. Then we'll learn together. We fell into an easy rhythm over the following months. Marcus would wait for me after my shifts, always with coffee and a smile. We'd debrief our days over dinner, sharing victories and frustrations. On weekends, we'd explore the city together or stay in, cooking elaborate meals and watching old films. Anna adored him immediately. Finally, she said after meeting him for the first time, you're with someone who actually deserves you. My parents were more cautious. They'd seen what Theodore had done to me, but Marcus won them over with patience and genuine warmth. He attended family dinners, helped my father with house repairs, discussed literature with my mother. He's good for you, my mother said quietly one evening while Marcus and my father were examining a broken cabinet. You smile more now. I do, I agreed, watching Marcus laugh at something my father said. He makes me happy. At the hospital we maintained professionalism, but everyone knew we were together. Some of the older doctors had raised eyebrows at first, but our excellent work spoke for itself. We collaborated on several difficult cases, our different specialties complementing each other perfectly. One evening, about a year into our relationship, we were lying in bed in Marcus's apartment, nicer than mine, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. He'd been quiet for a while, just holding me when he finally spoke. Move in with me. I lifted my head to look at him. What? Move in with me, he repeated. I know it's a big step and I don't want to pressure you, but I love waking up next to you. I love coming home to you. I want this to be your home too if you're ready. My heart was racing. The last time I'd lived with someone, it had been a nightmare. But this was different. Marcus was different. I was different. Yes, I said. Yes, I'd like that. His face lit up with joy and he kissed me deeply, rolling me beneath him. You mean it? I mean it, I laughed against his lips. He kissed down my neck, his hands sliding under my shirt. We should celebrate, he murmured, nipping at my collarbone. Oh. I gasped as his fingers found sensitive skin. How do you suggest we celebrate? I have a few ideas, he said, his voice dropping to that low register that always made my stomach flutter. He stripped my shirt off slowly, kissing each inch of skin he revealed. When he reached my chest, he lavished attention on my nipples until I was writhing beneath him, breathless with need. Marcus, I pleaded. Please? Please what? He asked, looking up at me with dark, heated eyes. Tell me what you want, Liam. You, I said simply. I want you. He made love to me slowly that night, our bodies moving together in perfect synchronization. He whispered promises against my skin, promises of love, of partnership, of a future built together. When we finally reached our peak, it was in tandem, clinging to each other like lifelines. Afterward, lying sweat-dampened and satisfied in his arms, I felt something I hadn't felt in over a decade. Moving in with Marcus was easier than I'd anticipated. He cleared space in his closets without being asked, insisted I arrange the furniture however I wanted, treated my belongings with the same respect he showed his own. "This is your home now too," he said firmly when I hesitated to rearrange his bookshelf. "I want you to feel comfortable here." Life settled into a beautiful routine. We'd wake up together, make breakfast while discussing our schedules, commute to the hospital. Our evenings were spent cooking together, reviewing medical journals, or simply enjoying each other's company. 2 years passed in this blissful domesticity. I was thriving in my career, had been promoted to senior resident, and was considering specializing in emergency medicine. Marcus had been offered a position as head of cardiology, which he'd accepted with characteristic grace. We talked about the future, not marriage necessarily, since I'd made it clear I wasn't ready for that level of commitment yet, but a life together. Perhaps adopting a dog. Maybe moving to a larger apartment. Small, concrete plans that felt real and achievable. Then one day, while I was shopping for groceries at the market near the hospital, I heard a voice I'd hoped never to hear again. "Liam?" I turned slowly. Theodore stood there, looking older and worn in a way that 5 years shouldn't have accomplished. His clothes were cheap, his posture defeated. The proud captain was gone, leaving behind a middle-aged man with tired eyes. "Theodore," I said neutrally. I heard you were working at St. Mary's now. A doctor. That's wonderful. Congratulations." "Thank you." An awkward silence stretched between us. Finally he said, "I wanted to apologize. For everything. I know it's far too late and I don't expect forgiveness, but I needed you to know that I'm sorry. Genuinely sorry." I studied him. He looked sincere, but I'd learned not to trust appearances. "What do you want, Theodore?" "Nothing," he said quickly. "I don't want anything from you. I've had a lot of time to think about what I did. About how I treated you. You deserved so much better." "Yes," I said simply. "I did. Are you?" He hesitated. "Are you happy now?" I thought about Marcus, about our life together, about the career I'd built from nothing. "Yes. I'm very happy." Something painful crossed his face. "Good. That's good. You deserve to be happy." He started to walk away, then paused. "For what it's worth, losing you was the biggest mistake of my life. I didn't realize what I had until it was gone. That's often how it works," I said. Then, more gently, "I hope you find peace, Theodore. I really do. But it won't be with me." He nodded, accepting this, and walked away. I watched him go, expecting to feel something, triumph, vindication, perhaps even pity. Instead, I just felt nothing. He was a chapter of my life that had closed completely. He no longer had the power to hurt me or affect my happiness. That evening, I told Marcus about the encounter. "How do you feel?" he asked, pulling me close on the couch. "Free," I said. "I finally feel completely free of him." Marcus kissed the top of my head. "Good. You deserve that freedom." "I love you," I said suddenly, fiercely. "I love you so much." "I love you too," he said. "Always." 5 years after that encounter, 7 years after I'd moved in with Marcus, I received an invitation that made me pause. St. Mary's Hospital was hosting a gala fundraiser, and as one of their rising star doctors, I was not only invited but asked to speak about my journey into medicine. "You should do it," Marcus encouraged. "Your story is inspiring." "My story is complicated," I countered. "All the best stories are." I agreed to speak, spending weeks crafting my remarks. I decided to be honest, not about the rebirth which no one would believe, but about the abuse, the struggle, the determination to reclaim my life. The night of the gala, I stood before a room of wealthy donors, hospital administrators, and fellow medical professionals. Marcus sat in the front row, his encouraging smile giving me strength. "Good evening," I began. "My name is Dr. Liam Chin, and 10 years ago, I was told I would amount to nothing. I talked about being trapped in an abusive marriage, about losing my identity, about nearly losing my life. I talked about my sister Anna, who'd helped me study in secret. About Mrs. Catherine, who'd believed me when I finally spoke up. About the long, difficult journey to medical school and beyond. I tell you this not for sympathy, I said, but because I know I'm not alone. Abuse doesn't discriminate. It affects people of all genders, all backgrounds. And if my story can help even one person find the courage to escape their situation, to reclaim their life, then sharing it is worthwhile. When I finished, the applause was thunderous. Several people approached me afterward, some with tears in their eyes, sharing their own stories of survival. Mrs. Catherine, who'd attended with her husband the commissioner, embraced me warmly. I'm so proud of you, dear boy. Look at everything you've accomplished. I couldn't have done it without people like you, I said. People who believed me. Who helped me. Anna was there too, beaming with pride. That's my baby brother, she told anyone who would listen. I always knew he'd do something incredible. But the best moment came when I finally made my way back to Marcus. He stood and pulled me into a kiss, not caring who was watching, not hiding our relationship or his pride in me. You were amazing, he said. Absolutely amazing. Dance with me? I asked. He led me onto the floor, and we swayed together to the music, surrounded by people but aware only of each other. I have something to ask you, Marcus said quietly. Oh. He pulled back slightly, reaching into his pocket. My heart stopped when I saw the small velvet box. I know you said you weren't ready for marriage, he said. And if you're still not ready, that's okay. We can wait as long as you need. But I want you to know that I'm ready. I want to spend my life with you, Liam. Will you marry me? I looked at this man who'd shown me what love was supposed to be. Who'd been patient with my fears, who'd celebrated my victories, who'd held me through my nightmares. Who'd never once made me feel less than whole. Yes, I said, my voice breaking with emotion. Yes, I'll marry you. He slipped the ring onto my finger, a simple platinum band that caught the light, and kissed me deeply, not caring that we were the center of attention now, that people were applauding and cheering around us. When we finally pulled apart, both of us were crying. I love you, I said. Thank you for showing me what love is supposed to feel like. I love you too, he said. And I'm going to spend every day of the rest of our lives making sure you never forget it.